At 2:14 a.m., the living room motion sensor tripped. At 2:16, my 10-year-old son, still half asleep, pressed the panic button under his bed, just like we practiced. By 2:19, the police had Patricia Garrison in handcuffs, tangled in my blackout curtains, shrieking about emergency code compliance inspections. She'd crawled in through the unlocked window above the laundry room. Her reason? She said with complete seriousness that she had a hunch about unsanctioned LED bulbs. My name's David Mercer. I'm a widower working in IT support for a regional bank. I don't host barbecues, don't gossip at mailboxes, and don't mow the lawn every 3 days like the Maple Ridge HOA handbook passive-aggressively suggests. My house is quiet and private. My 10-year-old son, Jake, and I keep to ourselves, which apparently made us prime targets for Patricia Garrison, the self-declared property aesthetics coordinator of Maple Ridge. She decided that my family and our porch light were somehow a threat to community values. It started with notices slipped under my door at all hours. First came a warning about a non-compliant decorative gnome, which was actually a leftover Halloween skull I'd forgotten to put away. Then a $75 fine arrived for unsanctioned solar pathway lighting. The lights had been there when I bought the house 5 years ago, but Patricia insisted they violated subsection 12.4 of the lighting ordinance she'd personally written last month. She once rang my doorbell at 6:42 a.m. on a Saturday morning to scold me with an indignant tone about what she called seasonally ambiguous wreaths. The wreath in question was a simple eucalyptus circle my late wife had made years ago. Another time, she tried to enter my backyard, claiming she needed to measure the grass blades for compliance. When I told her to leave, she huffed dramatically and said she'd be back with proper documentation. She'd often be spotted crouched behind her hibiscus bushes with binoculars and a clipboard, whispering frantically into a walkie-talkie she insisted was directly connected to code enforcement. The code enforcement office later confirmed they'd never heard of her and certainly hadn't given her any communication device. Then came the late-night incidents that made me genuinely concerned. My trash cans would mysteriously end up knocked over every Tuesday night, spilling garbage across my driveway. My security camera cable was cut clean through with what looked like garden shears. That's when I decided to upgrade the entire system. I installed silent alarms on every entry point, infrared cameras with cloud backup, and most importantly, kid-level panic buttons in Jake's room and the hallway. I taught Jake exactly what to do if anyone ever entered our house uninvited: press the button, lock the bedroom door, and hide in the closet. We practiced twice a week until it became second nature. Patricia's behavior escalated after I refused to attend her mandatory neighborhood beautification seminar. She started showing up at odd hours, measuring my mailbox height at 11 p.m., photographing my garbage bins from multiple angles at dawn. She even tried to follow Jake home from the bus stop one afternoon, claiming she needed to inspect his backpack for contraband gum. That's when I filed my first police report, though they said there wasn't much they could do unless she actually trespassed on my property. The night everything changed started like any other. I put Jake to bed at 9:30, checked all the locks twice, and settled in to finish some work emails. Around midnight, I heard Patricia's distinctive voice from next door arguing with someone on her phone about the criminal lack of HOA enforcement in our neighborhood. I should have known she was working herself up to something. By 2 a.m. I was sound asleep, completely unaware that Patricia had decided she couldn't rest knowing I might be using a non-HOA approved brand of laundry detergent. Yes, she actually mentioned that specific concern to the police later. She approached my house wearing all black, which she later claimed was standard inspection attire. She brought a flashlight, a laminated HOA rule book, and a digital camera to document what she called inevitable violations. She tried the front door first, then each window along the side of the house. The laundry room window, which I'd stupidly left unlocked after airing out the room earlier, became her entry point. She slid through like some kind of suburban raccoon on a mission, knocking over a bottle of fabric softener in the process. The motion sensor in the living room detected her immediately, sending an alert to my phone. But before I could even process what was happening, Jake had already reacted. My brave little guy had been on high alert ever since the backpack incident. The moment he heard the subtle beep of the motion sensor, which I'd programmed to make a specific sound, he pressed that panic button without hesitation. The silent alarm immediately notified the police with our predetermined emergency code for home invasion. I rushed to Jake's room to make sure he was safe and locked in. Through his door, I told him in a calm voice that he did exactly right and to stay put. Then I grabbed my phone to watch the security footage in real time. There was Patricia creeping through my living room with her flashlight, actually taking photos of my coffee table magazines and muttering about unapproved reading materials. She made her way to the kitchen, where she opened my refrigerator and started photographing the contents while making disgusted sounds about my choice of non-organic milk. The police arrived in exactly 4 minutes and 12 seconds. They entered through the front door I'd quickly unlocked for them, weapons drawn, shouting for the intruder to show themselves. Patricia, startled by their sudden appearance, tried to hide behind my curtains but got tangled in the blackout fabric. As the officers pulled her free, she shrieked with an hysterical tone that this was an emergency code compliance inspection, and she had every right to be there. She waved her laminated rule book at them like it was some kind of federal warrant. Once the police realized she wasn't a typical burglar, but an HOA board member playing discount secret agent, they called in their supervisor and started taking detailed statements. Patricia kept insisting she had implied consent to enter any property in the HOA jurisdiction for inspection purposes. The senior officer patiently explained that HOA rules don't override criminal law and breaking and entering is still a felony, regardless of what her little rule book said. She argued with an increasingly desperate voice that she was protecting property values and maintaining neighborhood standards. The investigation that followed revealed Patricia had done this to 3 other families in the neighborhood. The Johnsons had reported strange footprints in their garden and missing pictures from their porch. The Lynns had found their shed door mysteriously opened multiple times. The elderly Mr. Crawford had actually caught her in his garage but thought he was imagining things due to his medication. None of them had cameras to prove it, but they all came forward once news of Patricia's arrest spread through the neighborhood group chat. I had everything on crystal clear, cloud-backed, high-definition video. The footage showed her checking windows, entering through the laundry room, searching through my home, and even showed her taking photos of what she called evidence of non-compliance. My lawyer, who I hired the next morning, said it was the most comprehensive documentation of breaking and entering he'd ever seen. He actually laughed when he watched the part where she got tangled in the curtains. The media picked up the story within 48 hours. The footage of Patricia crawling through my window aired on the local news under the headline, HOA President or Unhinged Trespasser. The clip of her shrieking, "This is my jurisdiction," while wrapped in my curtains became a viral sensation. Someone turned it into a TikTok sound that got over 3 million uses in the first week. Patricia's mugshot, with her perfectly styled hair now resembling a bird's nest from the curtain struggle, became a meme template for entitled people getting their comeuppance. The HOA board held an emergency meeting 2 days after the arrest. Over 200 residents showed up, most demanding Patricia's immediate removal and the dissolution of her 23-page amendment to the neighborhood guidelines. The vote was unanimous except for Patricia's husband, who abstained while staring at the floor. The entire HOA disbanded that night, with residents voting to never reform it. Property values actually went up once potential buyers learned there was no HOA to deal with. Patricia's legal troubles were just beginning. She faced charges of breaking and entering, criminal trespassing, unlawful surveillance, and endangerment of a minor since Jake was in the house during her intrusion. Her lawyer tried to argue she had diminished capacity due to her obsession with neighborhood standards, but the judge wasn't buying it. The security footage from multiple angles, the evidence of her previous unauthorized entries, and her complete lack of remorse sealed her fate. The trial lasted 3 days. Patricia took the stand and delivered a 40-minute rambling speech about the importance of maintaining aesthetic standards and her belief that she was actually a hero protecting the neighborhood from chaos. She compared herself to neighborhood watch volunteers and insisted she was being persecuted for caring too much. The prosecutor simply played the video of her photographing my refrigerator contents at 2:15 in the morning and rested his case. Jake had to testify via closed-circuit video from another room. He calmly explained how scared he was when he heard the motion sensor, how he pressed the panic button just like we practiced, and how he hid in his closet until I told him it was safe. Several jury members visibly frowned at Patricia when Jake mentioned he'd been having nightmares about someone breaking in ever since she'd followed him home from the bus stop. The jury deliberated for less than 2 hours. Patricia was found guilty on all counts. At sentencing, the judge noted her complete lack of accountability and the trauma she'd caused multiple families, especially the fear she'd instilled in a young child. He sentenced her to 18 months in prison, 3 years probation, and ordered her to pay $15,000 in restitution. Patricia's jaw dropped as the sentence was read. She turned to her lawyer with a panicked expression and whispered loudly enough for everyone to hear that this couldn't be happening because she had a neighborhood standards committee meeting next week. The judge also issued a permanent restraining order preventing her from coming within 500 feet of my property or Jake's school. She was banned from holding any position in any registered neighborhood association, HOA, or similar organization within the state for life. When that part was read, she actually gasped and grabbed the defendant's table for support, her face turning the exact shade of red as the non-compliant roses she'd once tried to fine the Johnsons for planting.